For centuries, dolphins and humans have had a special affinity for one another, and in spite of years of study and research, no one seems to know why. Could it be we are linked in some unknown and unknowable way? What strange chemistry drives dolphins to rush toward the ships and churning propellers of man-made watercraft, often at great risk to themselves? Why would a wild dolphin, secure in its own habitat, bother to rescue a drowning swimmer? For that matter, how would the dolphin know the person was in trouble? Is there some kind of telepathic link between the mind of dolphins and the mind of humans? Could it be that researchers have finally found the key that will unlock the puzzle of dolphin language? Can we, at long last, communicate directly with these marvelous creatures? Countless stories are told of the dolphins' miraculous ability to recognize human frailty and of their eagerness to come to our aid. Is it possible that after hundreds of years we're finally on the verge of learning their secrets? Have dolphins been exploited by the navies of the world for purposes of destruction? Or is all of that just Hollywood hyperbole? Is it possible that dolphins have, through the most recent research, demonstrated an inexplicable ability to heal certain illnesses in young and old alike merely by their presence? There does seem to be a mysterious association between dolphins and humans, and some believe it is a question of intelligence. But whose intelligence? Ours or theirs? Are dolphins smarter than humans? A voyage into uncharted waters lies just ahead. Dolphins have always been a source of fascination for people, a fact that has not escaped even the ancient storytellers. Thousands of years ago, Telemachus, the son of Ulysses, so the story goes, fell into the sea and nearly drowned, but a passing dolphin brought him to shore. Ulysses was so grateful he made the killing of a dolphin a capital offense. The Roman scientist Plinius wrote of a friendship between a dolphin and a small boy that was so intense the dolphin actually brought the little boy to school every day. Similar stories are being told today by experienced sailors, startled swimmers, and even research scientists. But what is it that makes the connection? Is there any way to account for this remarkable affinity humans and dolphins seem to have for one another?
Across cultures and throughout history, human beings have always been attracted to dolphins. We don't have any scientific evidence as to why, but we do have an awful lot of theories. Dolphins are sensitive animals, and they translate this sensitivity to people in the form of unconditional love. So it's no mystery why people are drawn to them. And then again, it could just be envy. Dolphins symbolize many of the things that human beings long for, such as freedom and joy and happiness.
Dolphins have always been regarded as highly intelligent animals, but research has only recently begun to discover how intelligent they really are.
In the early days at the Miami Seaquarium, when I was first starting, trash was always finding its way into the main tank where the dolphins were. People would drop their sunglasses in, or candy wrappers, or combs, or something. And this is dangerous to the dolphins. They swallow these things in captivity, and they die from it. And so we trained some of the dolphins to retrieve these things for a reward. One day, I know there was nothing in the tank, because I also did the show as a diver, walking around with my helmet on and passing out fish. But yet Clown was bringing back sunglasses and combs and wrappers and such. And I had one of my assistants feed her, and I put my helmet on, went down to the bottom of the tank, and watched her, and she had this stuff stashed under a big rock, and they'd bring out sunglasses and combs and things that they put there and bring it back to the trainer for a reward. It shows that the dolphin has a sense of the future and a sense of delayed gratification. The dolphin is actually training the trainer to give up a fish when they do something creative.
Displays of that kind of intelligence in the non-human world are virtually non-existent, except for dolphins. It was almost inevitable, then, that researchers would begin to try and establish some sort of communication with these highly remarkable mammals. However, the possibility of conversation between humans and dolphins remained the province of science fiction until 1964, when three men, Dr. Wayne Bateau, Dr. Patrick Flanagan, and Steve Mosier, jointly developed the remarkable man-dolphin translators. Their work with dolphins was performed under a Navy contract, and under their guidance, research into dolphin-human two-way conversation literally took off.
Steve Mosier and I were in our early 20s, and Wayne Bateau was about the age I am now, in his mid-50s. And we worked together at a facility in Hawaii called Coconut Island, which was owned by the University of Hawaii. And we were under contract with the U.S. Navy Department of Undersea Warfare, which was a top secret naval installation in California. We had two dolphins, Maui and Puka, in a lagoon near the University of Hawaii. Our goal was to establish verbal communications with these dolphins, which we did very quickly. We had developed the man-to-dolphin translator, in which a person spoke into a microphone transducer apparatus that translated the speech into a whistle language, the sounds dolphins normally use. The man-dolphin translator's mate, the dolphin-to-man translator, performed the reverse function. It took dolphin whistles and turned them into human speech. So, for example, a certain dolphin whistle became a human hello. The key to bridging the gap between human and dolphin communications is converting complex human speech into dolphin whistles. Our technology then and now is light years ahead of any other dolphin communications research. We had established a mutual language of 35 words in use between the dolphins and us, and we conservatively predicted that in 10 years we'd have a 500-word vocabulary. But what was even more astonishing was the fact that the dolphins were able to create simple sentences on their own with the learned vocabulary.
Success seemed assured. In his final report to the Navy, Bateau stated, "The observation and discussion indicate a basis for the development of a language between man and dolphin has been established. The continuing work will be directed toward extension of vocabulary." But Bateau's work would go unfinished. On October 26, 1967, Wayne Bateau mysteriously drowned during a morning swim in the ocean. Could it have been just a regrettable accident? Some observers are skeptical.
Bateau's death was highly suspicious. It happened soon after he was quoted in 3 mainstream publications about how successful his dolphin research had been.
Just going public with the results of publicly funded research seems an unlikely motive for murder. But investigators uncovered another dolphin expert whose involvement, or lack thereof, suggested that indeed might have been sufficient reason.
Dr. John Lilly was an early dolphin communication researcher. From what I've read, he was first offered the Navy Dolphin Communication Research Project, but he declined because of the contract and the disclosure statement. There seemed to be a life-threatening clause in it. There would be a problem if he went public with his success.
Bateau was an accomplished swimmer in excellent physical condition, but according to the death certificate and autopsy report, the cause of death was asphyxia due to drowning. The mode of death, whether suicidal, homicidal, or accidental, was listed as unknown. What was there about this project that called for drop-dead secrecy? The Cold War was at its most chilling level during this time period. Could something have been going on that even Bateau and his associates knew nothing about?
Michael Greenwood, a Navy Dolphin Program whistleblower, told me just before he went underground that the contractor for the Navy was demonstrating how their dolphins could drown people right up the beach from where Wayne Bateau washed up.
Is it possible that Bateau's death was a training program that got out of hand. Patrick Flanagan, Bateau's research partner, was with him just a few days before his death, and he has an entirely different view of the drowning.
Wayne lived at my house in Massachusetts for the last several months of his life and died shortly after returning to Hawaii. He had received some psychological treatment and was very upset. He told me he simply wanted to go home.
Flanagan seemed satisfied that there was nothing sinister in his partner's death. But what happened next was equally perplexing. The Navy classified the whole project.
Although the idea for the project was originally Wayne's, Steve and I implemented the technology, so we told the Navy we could continue the project, but they seemed to think that we were too young to continue on.
It does seem possible that the Navy could have found an older, more experienced researcher to oversee Flanagan and Mosier. But perhaps there's another explanation for the cancellation. Could it be that after Bateau's exposure of the project, the Navy wanted everyone to think the research was being abandoned?
I believe the work did continue because Peter Markey, who worked with Bateau and was made principal investigator upon Bateau's death, published a final report in 1969. The 1969 Markey Final Report is conspicuously missing from the U.S. Naval Undersea Center's unclassified or acknowledged classified bibliography. But it either did or still does exist. We can be fairly certain of that because of a book written by René Guy-Bounier entitled Whistled Languages, which references the 1969 report.
What did the Navy do with Bateau's research after his death? And what of the mysterious rumors of a dolphin training program designed to teach the animals to actually drown swimmers? Has the Navy orchestrated a campaign of disinformation about Bateau's work while secretly continuing to pursue it? Is the scientific investigation of dolphin-human two-way communication being deliberately suppressed? Are dolphins really capable of conversations with us? Or is there something even more ominous about the Naval Dolphin Program than threatening non-disclosure forms, a mysterious drowning, and a trail of scientific misinformation? Did the Navy train dolphins to bomb targeted enemy ships and submarines, and even to kill enemy divers? From both a social and scientific point of view, the dolphin mystery is truly phenomenal. But the big question still remains unanswered. Can we consider them as smart or even smarter than humans? The U.S. Navy has been trying to answer that question for 40 years. Dr. John Hall, who has a Ph.D. in marine biology, got his first job as a research scientist working on the war dolphin programs at 2 naval research facilities.
I joined the Navy. I was hired as a civilian scientist in June of 1967. I became aware of the whistle code work that Wayne Bateau and his researchers were doing out in Hawaii in October of that year. And I was very impressed with the potential, if it was successful, of that project to be able to communicate with dolphins underwater at substantial distances. This work clearly had applications for both civilian and military uses. I was very surprised to learn that Dr. Bateau had died, especially when I learned that he apparently had drowned in shallow water in front of his beachfront home. Within a few months of Dr. Bateau's death, all reference to his project just seemed to vanish. It was as if the project itself had vaporized.
If the Navy is classifying their dolphin research because the dolphins can speak to us, then it is a great disservice to philosophers and people of science who would like to speak to a mind the size of humans or larger. It is a campaign of misinformation and an assault on science.
Officially, the U.S. Navy Marine Mammal Program began in 1959 in the Naval Ordnance Test Center, now perhaps more descriptively called the U.S. Naval Undersea Warfare Center in China Lake, California. But talking to dolphins wasn't part of the program.
As part of the Navy's overall marine mammal program, they developed a sub-program to use dolphins to locate objects underwater. The Navy was aware that dolphins produced lots of underwater sounds, and they were interested in determining whether these sounds were part of a biological sonar system. We knew that the clicking sounds that dolphins made were often used in association with finding objects underwater like fish, even in the dark. This is called echolocation. Dolphins generate echolocation clicks from their forehead. These sounds penetrate the marine environment and return to the dolphins in the form of echoes which have bounced off of underwater objects.
A dolphin's echolocation capabilities are so finely tuned that they can find a BB dropped into a tank at a distance of 70 meters. But did the Navy have another mission in mind?
As part of the Navy's marine mammal program, we developed a system to detect swimmers underwater. The system was very effective at night to deter enemy swimmers from approaching the ships.
The Navy's training program was scheduled to be put to the test in 1989 when the Navy decided to transport 16 Atlantic bottlenose dolphins living in the warm waters in the Gulf of Mexico to the chilly waters of the Puget Sound to guard a Trident nuclear submarine base in Bangor, Washington. This was to be the first stateside deployment of the Dolphins, but the plan would never be put into effect.
In April 1989, PAWS filed suit against the Navy to block their deployment of dolphins as underwater sentry guards at a submarine base in the Puget Sound. We alleged violations under a couple of federal statutes, including the National Environmental Policy Act and the Marine Mammal Protection Act. The Navy knew, for instance, that Nalu, one of the Navy's trial dolphins brought to the Puget Sound, died after losing 21 pounds in just 11 days. Clearly, the hostile marine environment of the Puget Sound is not suited for dolphins.
PAWS, a highly visible animal rights activist group, was able to convince federal judge John Coffenauer that their arguments were solid and that the Navy had not performed the prior environmental assessment required by the law. The Navy, rather than lose the case and set a precedent, settled out of court. But the discussion of what was more important to the national interest, dolphins or Trident submarines, was only part of the story. Throughout the 1990 hearings and settlement, the Navy adamantly denied that they had ever trained dolphins to kill. Could it be that the Navy lawyers had simply forgotten Vietnam?
During the Vietnam War, the Navy transported 5 dolphins to our base at Cam Bay, and there the dolphins performed underwater surveillance in order to protect our waterborne craft from enemy penetrating the base. This was called a swimmer nullification program, and the Navy referred to the dolphins as a biological weapons unit.
Was this even a possibility? Did the Navy really classify dolphins as advanced biological weapons?
Michael Greenwood, a former psychophysiologist for the Navy, reportedly told a secret Senate panel in Washington, D.C. that the U.S. Navy had trained dolphins to attack swimmers. With a nose cone strapped around the dolphin's beak, equipped with a huge hypodermic needle, and attached to 4 to 6 compressed carbon dioxide cartridges, the dolphin would then jab the needle into the target swimmer, and the target swimmer would literally blow up.
I was part of the team at Point Mugu in June of 1968 that conducted the initial feasibility study on the swimmer program and followed it through research and development, testing and evaluation, and final deployment of the dolphins in Cam Ranh Bay in Vietnam. The Navy's primary purpose for the marine mammal program was to find ways that dolphins and seals and sea lions could assist the Navy in meeting their naval mission. Until the end of the Cold War, the Navy poured lots of money into dolphin systems designed to find objects underwater, including swimmers, lost weapons, and other objects of value to the Navy. To my knowledge, no CO2 cylinders were ever used by the dolphins to inject enemy swimmers with CO2. The enemy swimmers in Vietnam were mostly North Vietnamese officers who had substantial amounts of training and were thought to have information of interest to the Navy, so serious efforts were made to obtain them alive. The dolphins deployed a nose cup with an attached stainless steel dart into the backside of the swimmers.
That sounds easy enough, if dolphins are as smart as we think they are. But what kind of training does it take to persuade a dolphin to deploy a hypodermic needle into the backside of a swimmer? Can these otherwise gentle creatures be taught to kill?
I worked as a civilian dolphin trainer inside the U.S. Navy Dolphin program between the years 1985 and 1989. Because of the abuse that I witnessed, I felt compelled to blow the whistle on the Navy Dolphin program, but had to do so anonymously, having signed the Treason and Espionage Act that does not allow you to reveal anything that goes on inside of a government program. Needless to say, I was asked to leave the program. These peaceful creatures were actually being trained to kill divers in the swimmer nullification program. They would wear a nose cone weapon device that had a canister that on impact with a diver would eject a .45 bullet. The initial training was showing the dolphins how to ram or punch a dummy diver who was actually to simulate the enemy swimmer.
Dolphins are equipped with a special lens over their eyes that lets them see as well under the water as on top of it. But even with that added ability, how can a dolphin distinguish between an enemy diver and a friendly diver? Even if the dolphins are smart enough to attack swimmers, have the humans really thought it through?
During 7 nights of dress rehearsal in 1987 to prepare the dolphins for the Persian Gulf, not a single night went according to plan. Whereas the dolphins were supposed to be coming and finding us, the enemy swimmers, they were running off playing with local San Diego Bay dolphins, spooking and going back to their home pen. The only time anything came close to working right was when one dolphin toad actually came up to me wearing the nose cone weapon device. And rather than hit me, she threw the nose cone weapon device off and put her chin on my shoulder. I looked at her eye and said, "You're supposed to be a killer." That next morning, I confronted the director and said, "This program doesn't work, does it?" And he said, "We know that. It's just a deterrent."
Rear Admiral Eugene Carroll, the first naval officer to serve as director of U.S. military operations for all U.S. forces in Europe and the Middle East, emphatically disagrees with the Navy's official denial of the swimmer nullification program.
Of course, the Navy trained dolphins for a swimmer nullification program. The purpose was to create perimeter security and to prevent the undetected entry of enemy personnel bent upon damaging our facilities. We had great success in Vietnam, and that led us later to use the dolphins for the same purpose in the Persian Gulf.
The Navy's marine mammal program was shrouded in secrecy only concerning those parts of the program that had direct classified military application. The vast majority of the Navy's research was reported in the open literature and scientific journals.
The United States Navy, it should be noted, was not alone in its appreciation of dolphin intelligence. The former Soviet Navy apparently had a program of their own, and in some respects, their efforts exceeded those of the U.S. A 1998 World Press Review article reported evidence of a dolphin swimmer nullification program in the former Soviet Union. According to the article, the dolphins were parachuted into enemy-sensitive waters from distances of 50 feet to 1.8 miles, depending on the secretness of the operation at hand. In the event of finding an enemy diver, the dolphin would inject the diver with carbon dioxide gas, causing him to blow up. Few people doubt that dolphins have indeed been deployed in this manner, but not all experts agree that the project is worthwhile. Can an animal so normally docile and gentle by nature be trained to destroy?
Each dolphin would only have done it once. Once they saw the reaction of the swimmer in the water, the blood, the pain, the limpness of the body, I don't think they would have repeated it. So this would have been a one-shot deal per dolphin.
The world would likely be a safer place if humans would also refuse to go to war after once seeing the destruction. Maybe dolphins are smarter than we are.